Hello, everyone. My name is Dame Doria D.C. Cordova, and I'd like to welcome you. I am the CEO and owner of the Accelerated Business Schools for Entrepreneurs, the Money in You program, and the whole Accelerated curriculum. And this is something that I was so blessed to have received as a gift many years ago. Originally, I was a student at the first business school for entrepreneurs, the first of its kind in 1978. And I learned the principles so well that I ended up owning the business. And this is what I've been doing nearly for 40 years now. I want to welcome you. Our curriculum is about bringing the best entrepreneurial education that we can find for those of you who are interested in doing really good for the world and also having a very healthy bottom line, creating wealth, having the life of your dreams. But you just really need to know that we are really more interested in making a difference in the world so that we can have a world that works for 100% of humanity. And we won't get into that conversation. That's a whole other webinar. But today I am so excited to introduce you to a new friend, to a new kindred spirit. And I have to, once you get to know me, and a lot of my graduates and friends are going to be watching this so they know what I'm saying here. But just recently, I lost my favorite mentor. He was like a surrogate father to me, and he just passed away in early August. And I miss him terribly, but more than anything else, I thought, oh my God, how am I going to ever replace a mentor of that caliber that had that kind of experience, that knew me so well, that knew what my purpose was, that knew what my life is all about? How am I going to get advice from someone like that? And I just have a feeling that Bill Galt, my angel mentor, must have found you, Gordon, because I'm feeling like you are partly going to be replacing him because of your kindred spirit, your background, and how much we think alike about so many things. So thank you and welcome, Gordon. Welcome. Thank you for being here for this conversation.
DC, it's my pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to the next hour to 45 minutes, however long it is that we have together.
Thank you. So I'm just going to introduce you right now, and I'm going to be looking down a little bit here. And so there's so much to say about you, and your biography is so big. So we did our best to shorten it here. So Gordon Bizar is the CEO and board chairman of National Diversified Funding Corporation, a Los Angeles-based global private equity company. He is sought after by entrepreneurs, business executives, and government leaders worldwide for his ability to foresee, strategize, structure, and organize innovative solutions to seemingly impossible business and societal challenges. That's the part that I really like because, Gordon, for many years, we have been churning social entrepreneurs and just really convincing people way back in the day that you could have a very profitable business and do good for humanity. And God, you've done such a great job. You are the preeminent global authority on business structure and monetization strategy, utilizing disruptive technology and business models to redefine business success in the 21st century. Being 5 to 15% better than your competition doesn't cut it any longer. Yeah, we really don't live in that world anymore. So to make a difference and get the traction needed to win your marketplace, you have to better the other alternatives by multiples of 3 to 10 times. Gordon works each year with tens of thousands of his entrepreneurs' disciples to remake whole industries using financial and electronic leverage. And I want to repeat that, using financial and electronic leverage. And Gordon, we won't get into a conversation about leverage right now, but it was my mentors, Marshall Thurber and Bobby DePorter, who used that word originally in the 70s in the context of business. And so in those days, it was used in Wall Street, but not in entrepreneurial business. I don't know if you recall that, and maybe you were using it too. So is this a word you've been using for many years?
Well, yes, it is, for a very, very long time. And some of the words I've been using so long, it goes back to the Paleolithic. So,
I mean, we are so in alignment. So this creates wins for every participant, from the business owners to their customers, vendors, investors, and employees, creating and sustaining massive business growth for all, including communities that harbor them. So we're talking about having an impact all around us, which of course also impacts a nation and it impacts the world. So the scope of the missions currently undertaken by you are grand in scale and disruptive in their implications. And it includes to facilitate the transfer of 12 trillion, and I'm imagining those are US dollars, of business wealth from retiring baby boomers to Generation X and Y entrepreneurs and much more. So this is your philosophy here. The next decade will be the largest intergenerational transfer of wealth in all of human history. Millions of businesses owned by retiring baby boomers will be up for sale. So for 38 years, the Bizar financing essential systems has helped entrepreneurs from all over the world to start, buy, and expand their businesses. So in this conversation, you're going to share some of the skills and techniques that you have tested within your own businesses combined with technology, and to touch on how to monetize any project or business by using disruptive technologies and how to use today's growing economy to pyramid to wealth. Now, you are going to be an instructor at our business school for entrepreneurs, which is coming up in beautiful Thailand. And I know that we're going to be talking for days there. And we're so honored that you will be joining us physically there to support so many of the participants, returning graduates, the people in logistics, and other instructors that will be coming. So what would you say to someone right now that is watching this, listening to this, that may not even make it to the school, on how do you look from the eyes of a small business person that may have a window into the future and say, this is the area that I need to focus in so that I can have the highest percentage of chances of succeeding and not becoming a dinosaur like so many technologies. I mean, so many businesses will be doing that.
first of all, that's a great question. And I want to thank you for that question. And let me give you the best way I know to pick a way to go to the future. Okay, the first thing I always tell people, look within yourself, number one. What are you passionate about? What is it that if you could wake up doing that every morning of your life, you would be the happiest, most passionate, most purposeful, driven person that you can imagine? Because that's a pretty good guide to where you ought to be going. Because if you're that passionate about it, you're going to be really good at this. And then the second thing that I would suggest that a person do is to research the marketplace. The most successful entrepreneurs I know right now are on the internet with e-commerce retail businesses. And what they do is they research the trends. They look at what's trending right now. What products are becoming successful? What products are in demand? What services are in demand? And then they look at it. Is that an area that I could be passionate about? And if it is, they start to see how it is that they could go into business in that area. If I could be so presumptuous, DC, what I'd like to do is I'd like to demystify a little bit, if I can, this whole idea of financial leverage. Because to a lot of people, they may be hearing that term for the first time. And they're saying to themselves, what is this financial leverage thing? And how does it work? And how could it make me a bazillionaire? And those kind of questions. And I'm going to share a little bit about the first company that I acquired. It was a manufacturing company. It produced motorcycle accessory parts. And I was a young kid, just a few years out of school. I didn't have any money. And I loved motorcycles. And so this manufacturer was there. And a friend of mine actually worked for the company. That's how I knew about it. And I decided that, boy, would I love to own a company like that. And so I started looking into, well, how could I, with no money and no experience, I mean, I'm just a few years out of school, how could I buy a company like this? Well, the company was for sale, and I managed to get through my friend an appointment with the owner. And I was just, it was just pure guts that I went and talked to him because I had no resources really at all. And I said to him, look, I'd love to own a company like this someday. Okay. And I'd like to talk to you about buying this one because it was for sale. And the bottom line is he wanted some god awful sum of money. The amount doesn't matter. It was a lot of money for this small manufacturing company. And what I realized is that inside this business that I wanted to buy, there were assets and the business itself had cash flow. So there was machinery, there was equipment, there was some real estate, little building that it actually operated out of. So those were assets. It had accounts receivable, it had inventory, it had different types of assets. And then it had cash flow. Every month it made a profit. It had money coming in, money going out, more money coming in than went out. So it made a profit. So as I began to understand the company a little bit better, and I got to know the owner, kind of personally, we kind of hit it off. And I got to be honest with you, he sort of saw me as the son that he never had. And so he almost sort of took me under his wing a little bit and decided he was going to educate me a little bit about the business. And it was a great, great rapport that I built up with him. So anyway, financial leverage. What is it and how does it work? Well, what I realized as I'm looking at this business is he wants this big sum of money for the business, but he was willing to take like half that down. And then the other half, he'd let me pay him off over 10 or 15 years. Wow. Well, okay, now I know how I'm going to pay off the 10 or 15 years part because I'm going to have the cash flow from the business. But how am I going to give him this money that he wants up front? So I looked inside the business and I saw there were all these assets in there. And then with a little bit of research, I found out that I could go to an asset-based lender. And once I owned the business, I could take the assets, pledge them to the asset-based lender, and they'd loan me enough money to give him his upfront deposit. So now I knew where the money could come from to give him the money up front. And then I knew from the cash flow, I could pay it off over years in terms of the debt to the seller and as well as my debt to the money I borrowed. My problem is I didn't have the cash to become the owner, so I could take the assets, pledge them to the asset-based lender and raise the cash. But what I figured out after a little more research is I found that I could go to a bank and get a swing loan. In other words, the banker would loan me money in the morning. I'd give it to the seller for the down payment. I now own the business. And in the afternoon, I could pledge the assets to the asset-based lender. And from the money they gave me, immediately pay back the bank. But I want to be honest with everybody, okay? I didn't have any kind of credit rating that would let me go to the bank to do that. So I managed to figure out how to set the whole thing up in what's called a double escrow. We set up an escrow at the bank. The banker loaned the money into the escrow to give the seller his down payment. The escrow closed. That gave the seller his down payment. Then a second escrow that closed simultaneously with that one had the asset-based lender's money in it that then went to pay back the bank. And now the asset-based lender had the collateral, the lien on the assets that I now owned. Now, I know that's a big mouthful for a lot of people, but what I want everybody to get a sense of that once you understand the dynamics of finance, once you understand how it works, once you understand what its elements and principles are, and you're just a little bit creative, there are always ways to figure out how to get things done. So here I was, young guy out of school, no money to my name. I end up owning this manufacturing company that manufactures motorcycle parts with an owner who just happened to love me and took me under his wing, taught me the business, taught me how to make money in the business so that when he left a year later, he knew he was leaving behind somebody who knew how to run the business. And that's what we mean by financial leverage, taking no money and leveraging the assets and the cash flow of the business you want to buy to acquire it. Now, I'm going to tell you one last statement here because I know I'm kind of running on and I apologize for that, but I get so excited about this stuff. When I wanted to build the business, I had two choices. I could build the business by increasing my sales within the business, but there was a second way. You see, if I try to grow the business by sales, which I tried to do at first, It takes a long time to increase your sales 10%, 15%, 25%. It can take years to increase the size of your business by 20, 30%. On the other hand, I figured out I went into business with no cash. I did it in 6 months of work. Okay. And I went from no sales to this multi-million-dollar company, which I now own. Well, what if I take that knowledge and instead of trying to grow my business internally, I go out there and I find competitors. I find complementary product line companies, and I use this financial leverage to buy them and add it to my company. I can double, triple, and quadruple the business every 6 months to a year by externally growing through acquisition and using financial leverage instead of trying to grow internally, grinding my guts out, trying to figure out how to increase my sales 5 or 10%. So I just want to introduce people to the power of financial leverage.
That is so great. Thank you. And you are perfect for our business school because we create an environment where people will be playing 2 major games throughout the whole week, through the 8 days. And then they have an opportunity to learn from experts and masters like yourself. Then they have to begin to practice what they have been learning from you in a group situation. It's a mock situation in many ways. It's an exercise, an experiential exercise. Then they have to demonstrate it at a trade show of a brand new product and service. And it is through that kind of experiential learning that then literally their neurological pathways in their brains begins to really grow. Mm-hmm. And to begin to really learn how to be creative, how to be an innovator, how to think laterally, which I immediately recognized in you, just reading about you and doing some research and looking at what you've done. And now, as you saw in our website, it's like the perfect storm is here in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is now the opportunity for just about anyone to become a billionaire because of technology and disruptive technologies. And this is something that obviously you started tapping into long ago and have become an expert and a master at this, and which is what you will be touching on at the school. Can you share with us the overview on where we are in the world and why disruptive technologies are a godsend to just about anyone that truly wants to be an entrepreneur and particularly wants to do good for the world?
Okay, well, that's a great question again. Boy, you're full of good questions today. This is great. Let me share with you a project that we have right now. It's a software program that we developed that facilitates a business model called strategic aggregation. One of the things that I will be telling people at your conference is not stuff they've heard anywhere else or stuff that they know from before. They've got other places they can go for that. What we're going to do is take people on a deep dive into what's working now. What are these strategic models for the 21st century that fully leverage the technology, the economy, the financial alternatives? Because once you understand these principles, the world is literally your oyster. It's always been your oyster, but now it's really your oyster. So I'm going to go through 2 models that everybody knows. Okay, you've heard of them. And I want you to be clear on what they really are, because most people, even though they've heard of these businesses and they think they know that business model that they use, they really don't. And I'm going to put the emphasis on a little different part of what they do. An example, you have a company like Uber, okay? Largest taxi cab company in the world, and they don't own a single taxi cab, okay? You got this company called Airbnb. Largest lodging company in the world. They don't own a single hotel, condominium, apartment house, home. They don't own any of that stuff. But they're the biggest. You want a lodging on any given night, number of people staying in a place other than their own home, they're the biggest. And they're the biggest because they use disruptive technology that enables them to do this. You see, there's a myth in the world. And the myth is you're only as wealthy as you own stuff. That's not the 21st century, my friends. The 21st century is about what do you control? What do you facilitate? What do you empower that gives you revenue and cash flow? That's what the key to wealth is. And that's a matter of intellectual property, not a matter of physical property. So there needs to be a whole reorientation of how people think about business. You don't have to own the stuff. In fact, it's better if you don't, because that way somebody else has the headaches of maintenance, management, the problems of running the day-to-day situation, handling the aggravation and the stress that comes along with all that. You don't have to own it. You want that elsewhere. So let's look at what a company like Uber really is. It's a technology-enabled platform that enables people who own assets to make more money with those assets than they could if they weren't using that technology platform. Okay? That's the essence right there. So let's take a look at Uber in that light. They don't want to own taxi cabs. They don't want to have taxi cab lots. They don't want to maintain them. They don't want to do any of that stuff. What they want to do is take people who already own a car, who already own a cell phone, and put them in the cab business so that they, in their spare time or as a full-time, can take assets they already own and make enough money with them that they're happy campers, where a good part of that cash flow goes back to Uber. Okay, that's it. That's how simple their business model really is. They just happen to pick the taxi cab business to do that. If you look at Airbnb, same thing. It's a technology-enabled platform that enables people who own a home, a condominium, whatever place they have, that when they're not using it, they want to make money out of it. So there's a technology-enabled platform through Airbnb where it permits that. So Airbnb doesn't want to own that stuff. They don't want to manage it. They don't want to do any of that stuff. What they want to do is provide this disruptive platform that lets them deliver, in the case of Uber, taxi cab services at a fraction of the cost of what a regular cab company has to do. With the same thing is true for Airbnb. Deliver that at a fraction of the cost with none of the management headaches. They just want to capture the cash flow. So when you start to rethink your business in that model, let other people own stuff. Make it profitable for other people to own stuff. Give them a better way to own that stuff and a better way to enjoy that stuff. And all you do is manage the technology platform that enables them to do it better. And you're leveraging two things when you do that. You're leveraging financial, because now very little money does a lot because you don't have to own it. And number two is you're leveraging electronic leverage, because you're letting electrons do all the work. And you're just letting the electrons do their thing, and you're leveraging yourself through thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are assuming the capital ownership responsibilities of making what you want to do happen. You see, it's a whole different emphasis. You're not looking at life and business the same way that you did in the 20th century, because in the 20th century, in order to do this, you had to own it, you had to maintain it, you had to manage it, you had to supervise it, you had to do all that stuff, because technology didn't enable you to do it any other way. But now it does. So this is the time for people to be rethinking in its entirety what their business goals are, to be rethinking entirely of what's really important to you. And the idea is that we live in a world today where the biggest money is going to be made by facilitating collaboration, by facilitating people achieving lifestyles that they want to enjoy, by helping other people to gain things that are important to them in life, which is not always material things. You see, the beauty of electrons is they don't have to move physical things. So now you can build businesses that work within people to help them build up their self-esteem, build up their confidence, build up their self-respect, build up the way in which they value other people, build up the way in which they receive benefits from their community that they never could have received without that technology that benefits everyone. We don't live in a zero-sum world where I have to lose because somebody else is going to win, or vice versa. Today, with the right strategy, the right structure, everybody wins together. Everybody supports the outcome. Everybody's resources are better managed because of the way you've orchestrated and organized your company. So once you've done that, it's a different world out there. And I have to say, I just hope in my lifetime this materializes to the level where you see materializing your goal, which is to see everyone benefiting and enjoying a great life with an absence of poverty, because poverty just has no place in the current world. Doesn't need to be here. And the ability for creative people to build businesses that make that an anomaly that never has to happen again for people, because everyone can benefit. One of the things we do, for example, in this program we have called Relight America, is to identify how everyone has a pathway to their own personal success. I was lucky. I was very lucky in my life. And the way I was lucky is I had a dad who understood business and taught me a lot about business. So I heard it at the dinner table. I heard it growing up. I didn't, money was not something that was unknown to me. How to build a business was not unknown to me. So I kind of had it built into my genetics as I was growing up. That was fortunate. But there are a lot of people that grow up in blue collar families, and their parents want to do the best they can for them, but they can't teach them what they don't know. They can't teach them what isn't a part of their family background. So many people out there have ability. They have core competencies. They have skill sets. They have experience. They have expertise that could put them into business, but they just don't know how. They don't know the pathway. So one of the goals that we have is to provide people who, for no other reason, we give them that pathway that they're unaware of, that they're fully capable and competent to pursue, but no one has shown them the pathway. It's like going into the jungle and you don't have a map, okay? But if you have the map, you'll get through the jungle. You'll know where the rivers are. You'll know where the quicksand is. You'll know where where the problems are. You'll know what the path is that takes you from where you are now past those obstacles, because they're there for everybody, not just you. So there are ways around them, and you'll take you through that pathway. So that's what Relight America is designed to take facilities and enable people within communities that don't have that dad, and for us to be the dad they never had, to make sure that we can help them identify that pathway and then support them through that process. When I look at my own success, again, I know I had gifts. Okay, I didn't just do this all with my own head. There were things around me that supported this process, but I see what those things were, and part of what we want to do is to duplicate those for everyone, so that everyone has access to what I had access to, that enabled me to reach higher levels than I could have had I not had those things. So that's my greatest thrill in life. That's my passion, is how do we bring that to other people? How do we make this possible for other people? And we identified, and I don't know how much time you want me to take with this, but I'm going to try and give you just a little flavor of it, of what we did in Relight America. We go into a city, like our project that we're working on right now is in Detroit, okay? So what we did is, I'm going to back up a second. You're going to love this, okay? Are you familiar with metaphysics?
Yes.
Okay. In other words, partly it's physics. For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction, okay? And you start to see that really we are all part of one integrated whole. We're part of a unity, okay? And what happens is that unity is perfect. Unity is perfect. And also it's hard to differentiate it with it because it's perfect, all right? But what happens is, in order to create all that we are, two things divided. In other words, you take a whole, you divide it into its polar operates, you separate it, now you've got two things. You got good and bad, you got up, you got down, you got beautiful, you got ugly, you got sick, you got healthy. Everything has an opposite. And that's the nature of the universe. It manifests itself in yin and yang and all of the things that, you start to know from a spiritual level, how we're all part of the same thing. We're just all differentiated self. That's all we are. And so what happens is, once you start to realize the nature of who we are and the nature of the universe, you start to be very competent now to put things back together. So when I want to succeed in business, what I look for is what got separated, what got polarized and separated, and how do I take the features of each of those things and recombine them for success? And I'll give you an example. What's the most successful business arena right now? Well, it's the internet, right? Everybody wants to do e-commerce on the internet. You have e-commerce retailers on Amazon becoming millionaires, multimillionaires in a few years. I see these companies every day that go from $500,000 in sales their first year, to $3 million in sales their second year, to $7 to $10 million in their third year, working on a 30% markup, margin, profit margin, making money hand over fist. They're cash flow machines. okay? And they do it where they don't do anything. They outsource to a contract manufacturer to make their product. They have it shipped directly from the contract manufacturer to a fulfillment center at Amazon, okay, who then warehouses it, picks it, packs it, takes the order, ships it, collects the money, and then sends the entrepreneur their check every 2 weeks, okay? So the entrepreneur doesn't do anything. They make sure that the orders are filled by the contract manufacturer to the fulfillment center, and what they do know is the marketing algorithms of Amazon. So they've learned how to get Amazon to like them and to leverage Amazon. Okay, but they have no assets. They got a little bit of inventory, and every 2 weeks they're getting paid, and they're just making money, hand over fist, right? And then now that person is now fat, dumb, and happy. They're making so much money, they decide they want to sell their company, okay? And they'll sell it for 3 to 5 times the earnings of the company. The problem they have is the buyer has to be able to finance the purchase. And when the buyer goes to the bank to say, I want to borrow $20 million to buy this company at 5 times EBITDA, it's making $5 million cash flow, and I can buy it for 5 times EBITDA, and I want to be able to buy that company. I want to borrow $20 million to buy it. Bank says, great. They look at the cash flow. They know they're going to get paid back from that cash flow. No problem there. The problem is there's another box that a banker has to check off on his loan form, which is collateral. Okay, I need a secondary source of repayment just in case the cash flow doesn't materialize like you feel it's going to, and something happens and the cash flow stops. So I need a secondary source of repayment. So what's your collateral? And I said, well, I don't have any collateral. The company doesn't have any assets. It outsources its manufacturing, it outsources its sales, and it sits there and collects checks. It doesn't have any assets. It just has this cash flow. So you can't get it financed at the bank. Why? Because you can't get the collateral box checked off. It has no assets. All right. Now, why is this important? Remember yin, yang? Well, why are these guys so successful? They're successful because they're taking away the retail business of the brick and mortar retailer. Okay. So what do you have when you drive down the street now? You go down the street and you start to look around the environment, and what do you see? You see big box stores vacant. You see department stores vacant. You see the anchors of malls empty. Okay, now not everywhere, but enough places that these properties are in distress, and they're in distress because of the internet. They are therefore underperforming. You've got this big asset and you have no cash flow. Okay, so the e-commerce company has cash flow and no assets, and now you've got an asset over here that has no cash flow. So the owner of that is stressed. Okay, he's still got to make his mortgage payments. He still has to pay his maintenance costs. He still has to pay his taxes. Okay, and all that money's going out every month, and he has no money coming in. So now these buildings are becoming for sale at these very low distressed prices. Okay, so on the one side, you've got the problems of e-commerce. On the other side, you have the benefits of e-commerce. You have cash flow on one side, but no assets. On the other side, you have assets and no cash flow. Okay? So if you now start to think in terms of what I've been just discussing with you, now the question is, okay, if I'm a smart guy, how can I take the benefits of one and marry them with the problem of the other, and vice versa, solve problems for both sides, okay, and make a lot of money out of it when I do that? So we figured it out. Okay? If we take the high cash flow company and we want to buy that, it's going to have a cash flow. Well, when we own it, what could we do with that cash flow? We could lease at market rates the building that's unoccupied. The minute we lease an empty building, we take its market value from very low because it has no income and it's in distress to now a very profitable property to own. So something that was worth $4 million is now worth $12 million. Okay. Wow. Well, we buy it at 4. Okay. Take the owner out of their pain. We then buy our high cash flow company. We lease the property. We now make the property go from 4 million to 12 million. We borrow out the difference between the 12 and the 4. Okay. So we can now borrow 85% of the 12. So we pay back the 4 that we used to buy it, and we got all this cash left over, we use that to cover our cost of buying the high cash flow company. Because I know how to leverage the cash. Once I have that kind of cash that I just got out of that building to use for the purchase of that high cash flow company, I know how to leverage that and all the rest. Okay, and so your only question is, well, how do you do one, get the money here, then you have to go do this one over here, and then you have to take that one and go do this one. So it's a big mess, right? No, it's called double escrows. I make my deals with everybody as to what's going to happen when the deal completes. We take everybody's agreements, they go into a double escrow. We have the seller put their property in there. We get the lenders to put their money in there. Everybody puts in, and then the escrow closes, and I end up owning the building, owning the high cash flow company, fully leveraging the real estate, fully leveraging the high cash flow company, where the high cash flow company has the cash flow to pay for everything.
Wow.
Wow.
Now,
And
this is what you are going to be sharing with the
yeah, you're right. Now I just gave you a 30,000-foot view of what we do. Okay, at the event, I'm going to take people right down onto the ground level, and I'm going to show them piece by piece by piece how we do this.
So this is then can apply to just about anyone, because I can feel people thinking right now, okay, he was talking about these new businesses that I can look at, but I have a business, I have a building, I have spent years on something. So you can actually apply this new paradigm, it's not new, but this particular paradigm that you're sharing with us can be applied to just about any business.
Yeah, well, let's put ourselves in either one of the two people's place that I just mentioned to you.
Okay.
Okay, now let's say I'm a real estate owner and I own this vacant building. I had a great tenant in here called Home Depot or Office Depot or Lowe's or Target or whoever it was. They just moved out. And I can't re-rent this thing because there's nobody renting this stuff anymore. Okay, or at least the amount of people renting it are so low relative to what's available. Too much supply and not enough demand, right? So that person right now is all over this country. They're everywhere, okay? And they're sitting there scratching their head, feeling sorry for themselves because they got this problem. They don't know what to do with it. Well, what I just explained, they could take that building. Now, if they knew where in the marketplace to find these high cash flow companies, and if they knew how to structure the deal with them, they could bail themselves out tomorrow because they have the tenant now to put into their company. They increase the real estate value. They borrow the surplus out. They use that to cover the cost of the company. They now own a cash flow machine, fully leveraging the building. And then at your event, I'm going to show you then what we do with those buildings to make even more money. This keeps getting better. So what I'm saying is that there's a person who's got the problem, and they're so focused on the problem that they're not even seeing or even open to the solution. They're trying to solve it in 20th century methods instead of looking at themselves as a 21st century business owner who now has whole new tools at their disposal that they don't know they have. Okay, now let's say you're the guy who has the high cash flow company, okay, and you want to sell your company, okay, because this is what you want to do. You want to turn your work into cash, a big chunk, right? And you want to go live in Maui for the next 2 years and just enjoy life. And then when you come back, you know what? You know how to make money in the internet, right? So you got a bunch of money in your pocket. You're sold your old business, but now you know how to do it all over again in another industry, right? So, take some time off, go have some fun, take the money, enjoy. And from then on, your lifestyle's completely different. But now you want to sell, then you go into the marketplace, you can't find a buyer, okay? So now you know how to create funding for a buyer.
Wow.
So now you help your buyer to figure out how we're going to fund this, how we're going to help them fund their purchase of our business. It just doesn't get any better. It's like you got to know the tools that are out there. It's like if you're trying to solve problems and you don't have a clue of what the options are today, how are you going to do that? Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to fill people's heads with methods, concepts, structures, strategies for how do you do these things. And life will never be the same. It will never be the same. You will go down the street, and instead of seeing poverty and poor and this, you're going to see opportunities all over the place. You're going to say, oh my gosh, I can take what I just learned and I can turn that into this. Yes. And so the realities that that's possible creates whole new opportunities for people, creates whole new ways of thinking. And this is why I think the 21st century is going to be magic for the world, absolute magic. As entrepreneurs start to learn these enhanced methods, new techniques, how to disrupt all the other businesses out there, turn them into businesses that are 3 to 5 to 10 times as profitable as the ones that already exist. And it's possible. It's possible. We're going to expand people's vision of the possible.
Oh, I'm so excited. Because I actually have been thinking like that since I met Buckminster Fuller. You know, when you were talking about the whole thing around unity, we actually have a whole piece in the business school where we'll be talking about that. And there's a whole conversation that I won't get into right now. But for me, that's what I see. I see all these problems out in the world that, that you can set structures, that you can create collaborations, and then just explode financially and solving problems. And I'm just so excited that we got to meet you. And you remember I was sharing with you that I have a new definition of wealth. And it was a combination of learning from Buckminster Fuller, one of our mentors. And for those of you that don't know who he is, he's the gentleman that created the geodesic dome, coined the word synergy, and basically his whole life was committed to creating a world that worked for 100% of humanity through spontaneous cooperation in the shortest possible time without any ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone. So if you can create a product or a service that answers that question, it's like, it's so beautiful. And so our school right now has quite a few people that are coming with amazing projects, Gordon. And they are beautiful, and they just need the structure. They just need that mindset. So anything you'd like to say?
We're going to help them structure that. That's exactly what we're going to do. Here's another thing that I want to credit with the 21st century for. In the 20th century, people in business saw people differently. They were either a customer who you were going to exploit, or they were a worker who was a cost to you. Okay. And that's the way business people perceived the people that they dealt with. Okay. So you got your employees, they're going to cost you money because you got to hire them and you got to manage them and you know, and they're going to cost you money to operate your business. And then your client was a walking wallet who you wanted the money that was in their wallet, and you had to figure out how do you get the money out of their wallet. Okay. So that was the way business was viewed. That's all part of old capitalism. Okay. We've invented a new term, which we call it scapitalism, socially conscious capitalism. And when you switch from capitalism to socially conscious capitalism, you open up such tremendous profit opportunities. You can't believe how the world opens up and changes. And let me give you an example. In all of our businesses, we see our people, our employees, if you will, as a resource. More importantly, they are the most important resource. And we never see them as a cost. We see them as an asset. And here's the difference, okay? If you treat people like they are there to be used, they feel that their attitudes are bad, they don't work to their capacity, they're trying to figure out how they benefit themselves, perhaps even at your expense, because that's what they're left to do, because you're not going to take good care of them. So they have to learn to survive and take good care of themselves. Well, the first thing you got to learn in today's business is you want to switch that, because business is like you have to win the hearts and minds of your own people. And if you start with that as your premise, so if I'm going to win the hearts and minds of my own employees, and I do it, then their attitudes become very positive. They love where they work. They treat the business very differently than they treat it when the business is out in their mind to get them and to exploit them and to use them. So for example, let me just give you an example. We have a company in the UK. It's a chain of care homes. And we've bought these care homes from people who ran them as a mama papa type business, and we're consolidating them. And we had huge problems with them when we first started buying them. And the reason is that the people who were the nurses and the people who were the administrators, they all felt like they were being exploited by the prior owner, and their attitudes were terrible. So when the owner was there and watched them every day to make sure that they did what they did, with that kind of intensive management, they performed at an acceptable level. But the minute we bought it out and that owner was gone, and we're now reliant on the employees to some extent self-manage, it wasn't happening. They weren't self-managing, okay? So here's what we did. We called a meeting of these people, and we said to them, look, he says, we're here to win your hearts and minds. We want you to be a raving fan of this company. We want you so happy with being here that you can't stand to not be here. You don't even want to go home anymore. You want to be here. And I'm here to ask you and to listen to you. What has to change here for you to feel that way about this company? And what we started to get in that feedback was, well, look, I want to be recognized. When I do something, I want recognition for it. I want to be listened to. I want to be heard. When something's important to me, I want to know that the company cares about that and is willing to do and to lean in to help make it happen. And so we started listening, right, to what they're telling us. And we let them know, look, we value you as a top professional. We know you're good at what you do. We're here to support you to be the best you can be. We know you care for these patients in this, and residents in this house. And we want to make sure that you're here to do the best for them so that they're raving fans of you. They're raving fans of our organization. That they, when they talk to their families, are telling them how pleasant it is to be here, how wonderful it is, how they're watched and cared for, so that their loved ones are telling other people and becoming salesmen for us, because they're telling their other friends about how great this place is. And so when their friends are looking for where do they put their loved one, it's going to be here. Okay, we want you to help us solve a problem. There's a shortage of qualified nursing people out there. Okay, we want you so happy here that you're telling your friends, your associates that are now working for someplace else that is mistreating them, what a great place it is here, so that we can recruit and bring in the very best of other people that are out there, so that we together are going to build a preeminent facility that makes us all proud to be and do what we do. And when you approach people that way, there's this big, wow, I want to be part of that, okay? And so now you have the right attitudes. You have people's energy focused on how do they continue to make things better. You have them feeling like they're part of something that matters, that they're part of something that they can do good in the world and be recognized for the good that they do, that they can see themselves as a top professional who's appreciated for their contribution that they make. When you create that kind of a work environment, your employees aren't a cost. They're the best asset that you will ever have, okay? Yeah. So it's a question of perspective. It's knowing where the values are. And at the end of the day, we took these care homes that were using what are called agency staff. In other words, it was so hard for them to recruit full-time people that they had to get agencies to put people in and pay double for them what they had to pay when they actually had somebody working directly for them, because the agency had to make money. So when they did that, their agency percentage went down. Their people that work now in the company and directly for the company went up. So we eliminated all those extra agency costs. So if somebody wants to be capitalistic and say, look, I'm here to make money, great, okay? Because if you adapt this process, you're going to make more money because our costs came down dramatically, okay? Our care for levels came up. Our ability to bring in new patients or new residents went up because the sales force was the families of the people who had their loved ones in there. So our flow of our number of beds filled in a home went up. So our ratio of revenue to cost went higher. So measure by measure, you can see it all in your bottom line. And it's all about understanding people and realizing that it's all about people. When people are better off, the world works better, plain and simple.
Oh, I'm so excited. Well, I have to tell you that you're going to love our peeps. At the business school, there's going to be a beautiful woman by the name of Dr. Shari Clark, who created a similar model in the prison system. And we were just having a conversation with her, and she saved the state of New York $1.5 billion. Those are things that could be measured. But just recently, she's been having conversations with them, and the savings to the state by converting, people that were in prison and making them feel valued, just all the things that you just mentioned. And then instead of them going back to prison, 85%, I believe, of them stayed out and became major contributors to society, and only 15% returned, which is the opposite of the usual number of people that return. Similar, the same, that is the context, the core of our work. And it actually came out of a real estate company that I'm sure that you've read in our history. It was called Hawthorne Stone, and my mentors, Marshall Thurman, Bobby D. Porter, there were several partners. Later, they left that organization in order for them to teach all of the things that you're just mentioning in the first business school for entrepreneurs of its kind in 1978, which I attended. And they practice all of these principles that you're talking about and that we've been teaching for nearly 40 years on how to apply that to just about any organization. And that's the context of our school. It's like how you treat every single person in the organization. When they're excited, they become like the book Good to Great. They become, you can hardly wait till you wake up and go to work. Your customers rave about you, and you have an economic engine that will then create such a level of wealth, not only for yourself, but all those that are contributing to you and of course, humanity. So I'm so excited that you also have created, a system. You and I had this big conversation about some of the things that I feel that I don't have the time to create because I'm so busy churning out social entrepreneurs. I know what my job is. So now I get to collaborate with someone like you that has a software system, that has this program that then kind of puts in all the different pieces. And even though we teach in the school, we start off with a planning program called PERT by one of our instructors that has been learned it from the master of the PERT chart technology. But the one thing that we had not found yet was all the pieces, all the different pieces that it takes for that to get done, in many ways automated, and in many ways from learning techniques and tools from somebody like yourself and your team. And so right there is a synergistic result that you've been doing your thing, we've been doing our thing. 38 years later, 40 years later, we get to meet up and say, whoa, I've been doing this, you've been doing that. And then we now become wealthier. And this is, just to complete my earlier thought, my new definition of wealth, having learned this from Buckminster Fuller and from people like Lynn Twist, who wrote the book, The Soul of Money, and other mentors, my new definition of wealth is having access to cash, access to networks, access to tools, access to expertise, to support, to investments, and to people that can support you. So for me, when I had my big learning experience in the financial crisis in Asia in 97 and 98, that many Americans don't know about, but many people obviously in the Asia Pacific region know about, it only took me a couple of years to recuperate because of the access that I had to all those things. So for me, when I'm asked to define what poverty is and why somebody gets stuck, and maybe they were middle class, but now with all the changes in the world, they're becoming more and more poor, it's because they don't have the access that you and I have and that others that we know that have. And my commitment now is to make so many of those tools accessible to the masses so that we can eradicate poverty and hunger, because that truly is what I've seen in the last 40 years is the solution to a major problem. And in the process, those participating get very wealthy from it. And now we have so many examples with all the mega wealthy that are supporting and with individuals like yourself that also has a whole equity funding business. And so I'm just so excited.
You're gonna love Relight America.
I
Remember, okay, remember we just talked about taking the underperforming building, right? And taking the
Yes.
high cash flow company and how that works for us to take over the building and have the high cash flow company covering the rent and only from a small portion of its cash flow make the building worth enough money that increase in value could be leveraged out and pay for everything, right? We just talked about how we do that. Well, we don't just sit there now with an empty building. We have a plan for what we put into that building because we got this big box store. We can do anything we want with the interior, right? Oh, that's my alarm. We'll ignore that. Just let it do its thing. Hold on one second.
It's okay.
All right. So anyway, so here we've got the big building. We got the rent paid, but it's empty. And it's empty with a big box. We can put anything we want in there, right? So what do we put in there? What we're going to put in there are these Relight America centers that are designed to provide the pathway to everybody in the neighborhood for how they succeed. So in there will be going all of the resources, all of the support systems, all of the education and training systems, everything it takes to take anyone from that community and evolve them through a process that delivers them out the door as a successful person in the field of their choice. We chose Detroit for a reason. One of my partners is a fellow by the name of Kerry Gordy. Kerry's the son of Berry Gordy, who was the founder of Motown, which came out of Detroit. Yeah. Kerry's dad, Berry Gordy, his contribution to music, in addition to great music and great songs, was the way in which he produced those talents that came out of Motown. Because what happened is he literally took people within a 3-block area of the community who had some talent. They could sing, they could write, they could play an instrument. And he organized them into such a way where he could take somebody who could sing, like a Diana Ross, but who didn't have any other skills. She couldn't write, she didn't dress well, she didn't do any of the things when she walked in that door that are now Diana Ross. Okay, but what they did is they surrounded her when they brought her in with writers who wrote the music for her. Holland Dozier Holland, greatest writing team ever. They put a backup band behind her to now play the right music to help support her voice. They hired the choreographers who showed her how to move and how to dance. They hired the people who dressed her and showed her how to present herself and walk in the way that she now carries herself. So they literally took people that were ordinary people relatively in one door, and out the other door they produced a superstar with great music that turned the whole generation on in terms of their kind of music. Okay, so they produced what they called a factory for producing superstars and hits. Okay, in one door comes talent, out the other door goes top talent and hits. All right, now, the reality of that manufacturing facility came out of an idea of Berry Gordy, who looked at Ford out of Detroit and said, look, if this guy can mass produce cars, I can mass produce talent. And he set up Hitsville to do that. It was a factory for taking people and producing them into successes. That formula is at the heart of what we do in Relight America. In one door comes the raw talent. It comes people with hopes and dreams and ability. Okay, and in that resource is everything it takes to help sculpt them into what it will take for them to succeed in that field, including a personal person who's their life coach who will help move them through all the resources that are in that building and deliver out the other end somebody fully empowered and capable to be successful in the field of their choice. That's what's going into those buildings.
So we could actually do Relight Australia, New Zealand,
yeah, everything.
Malaysia,
yep.
China, whatever country.
This is we had to start somewhere. We started in America.
Yeah, we really need it. We really need it. Don't get me started on that one.
Yeah.
I wanted to really thank you. You know, our time is almost up. I really want to honor, you are one of the busiest men on the planet. So I know that we could speak for hours. I just wanted to share with those that are coming to the business school and those that are thinking still, you know, we still have a couple of weeks and people are still coming in. And then for those in the future that may be watching this, we also wanted to invite them because I will forever have business schools. I mean, as soon as you started talking about that building, I started thinking about, okay, business school for entrepreneurs. I just need a little corner and the masters that we have around us that can support churning out more social entrepreneurs. And, you know, and we're creating a business school for entrepreneurs that want to move into the world of renewables. And I've been given the gift of being able to do that in the Solar Valley in China. And of course, that's going to be our showcase, our model, our first, you know, prototype. And then we'll be able to expand that because for me, the expansion of renewables, and at the school, you're going to have an opportunity to meet Wang Ming, who is the world's leading solar architect, a billionaire with heart, and someone that actually is the only person that has created a solar valley, 200 million square meters of a solar showcase. Now he wants to put out solar restaurants. He's got this whole conversation about that. And then, of course, there's a whole city of nearly 6 million people that are using solar technology to heat the water and to light all the city lights. So we have a combination. We have a group of the most beautiful social entrepreneurs and participants that are coming in to really learn from each other, to learn from experts like yourself. But I was just talking to one of the masters that's coming in to be a participant and also will be teaching. And the synergy that occurs when you get a group like that, and then you get someone like you that will activate, ignite, and just their creativity and their innovation and their and how to take their product and services into, you know, magnificent money-making, you know, products and services. It's a dream come true. And I want to thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going to have to run because my phone's ringing off the hook here because I'm late for another meeting. But before I go, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you here and your audience as well. But the other thing is I want to tell you again, just one more time, how pleased I am to have met you and to know that I'm speaking with a kindred spirit who's got the benefit of the world at heart and who really, you know, is committed to making the world a better place and getting your passion fed from that process. And I couldn't be more proud than to be part of what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Gordon. You go ahead. And I'm just going to finish up with a couple of things for the audience. And we'll see you soon. We'll
All right.
See you again. Thank you, Gordon. Aloha.
Thank you. Bye, bye, DC.
Bye-bye. So everyone, for those of you that may be still interested or want to send some of your friends, we definitely want you to go to www.globalaccelerated.businessschool.com. And you can spell accelerated, EXCELLERATED.com. And most likely my team is probably going to put that in somewhere in the screen or below me somewhere. Or you can also go to gbseschool.com. That's the short one. That's for my young peeps out there. gbseschool.com, another place. And you can apply there and you can see what we are all about. And just come and join us. This beautiful man that, I mean, I just going to share this a little bit about Gordon with you. What was so interesting, this is the busiest man on the planet, okay? And he has this huge company. He's an equity funder. He's creating Ignite. He already has created Ignite America and has, you know, during the week that he is in Thailand, he is going to be completing 2 acquisitions that he's going through. That means 2 companies that he has bought. And when he heard about what we are about and the gathering of so many beautiful souls like yourself and others that are going to be joining us, he changed his whole schedule and is coming. And he will be spending 5 days with us. And so that is a pattern of thinking. That is something that I just want to share with you, that when one of the key things about being successful is when you see something that is so unusual and resonate so much with your heart that you will move the sun and the moon to be there. And I feel so honored that we have attracted such an amazing expert and master that will be spending quality time, not only with the class, but also in evening dinners. And then also he will be doing hot seats. So the hot seats, we're going to pull out of the group 5 or 6 names out of a hat, literally out of a hat. And what he will do is he will work with that particular individual. But it doesn't matter whether you get chosen or not, because every time he works with someone, and he has worked with some of our top graduates, he has worked with Tony Robbins, of course, you know, who we trained when he was 23 years old in logistics, and my mentor Marshall trained him on being a leader. And then he has worked with Jay Abraham, and Jay Abraham has been an instructor at our stage. We're the ones who took Jay Abraham, the master of marketers. We were the first people to take him to Asia in 1995. And then with several other of our instructors and experts and people that have trained at our business school. Of course, we are so surprised that we never met before because we have been living in parallel universes. But of course, I spend so much time outside of the United States. So I want to thank you. Thank you for those of you who are coming next week or a couple of weeks' time, whenever you're getting there. I want to thank you for those of you that I will be meeting in the future somewhere for having watched this, listened to this. I want to particularly thank each and every one of you who is committed to the betterment of humanity and creating beautiful, profitable businesses that then allow you to have the lifestyle for you to live out your passion. I want to, of course, thank my whole team and Real and Craig in Australia putting all this together, and the whole team. There's too many to mention here. We have an amazing support group coming, and we have beautiful instructors, beautiful graduates returning. It is a party, and it is a party to make this world work for 100% of humanity. Like you said, wow, that's an amazing vision. I learned that vision from Buckminster Fuller, and I have had the most beautiful life committed to that vision. So thank you so much for having joined us. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful life. I'll see you somewhere in the world. And for those of you attending, see you in a couple of weeks. Aloha nui loa, as we say in Hawaii. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.